To make sense of it all, Tsepo Khadima, political analyst, joins us in studio. Lucky Tekisho, Transform RSA Deputy President, Zamo Madlala, Radical Economic Transformation on Coalition, joins us on the phone. Good evening to you, gentlemen, and thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with you, Tekisho, in terms of the procedural processes that may have been flouted in the Eskom inquiry so far, with the implicated saying that they weren't given a fair chance. The fundamentals of the Constitution in itself. Just talk us through that when it comes to a case of you being implicated.
Yeah, I think it reminds some of us on that ad hoc committee of the SABC. People were giving evidence against a particular person called Hlaudi. But Hlaudi was never given an opportunity to be able to rebut what has been said about him. And I think that automatically is really unlawful and is against the Constitution, because he does have right to rebut, and also he has a right of out partem role in order for him to be able to question and cross-question whatever is said about him. And in this instance, what I see is that even if they are going to be given an opportunity to come back later, the issue of cross-questioning you at a time when you give evidence is not there, because when you speak, I need to have that opportunity to be able to ask you at that time to say, no, you're saying this, why are you saying this? Because this is what is happening, cross-questioning. But I do not think that will be there, because they have already given evidence, and now it will be his or her chance to give evidence. So the process is, that has not happened. But what is also questionable really is, we don't understand the reasoning behind the parliamentary committee to have this type of inquiry, because we know for a fact that the work that needs to be done by them is really the work of the police. The police must investigate. The police must be able to ensure that when somebody does something wrong criminally, must be arrested. But secondly, the parliament does not have the authority, this committee does not have authority to take decisions. It recommends to the National Assembly. Yeah,
but the possible reputational damage, and especially if you're saying the opportunity being denied, yes, of you being able to question whoever maligns your name or drags your name through the mud, it now will be a case of your word against theirs, yes, and depending on who's more credible, yes, or perceived to be such, that then will be the rule.
Yeah, that is a problem, because that's why you find that there is cross-questioning. There is, you ask somebody that talks about you to say, why are you saying that? You also have your alibi, and you can be able to bring your alibi forth, and then people must decide. That has not happened.
I mean, Ben Martins gave us that alibi, saying that,
yes,
at the particular date in time, he can prove a sequence of events or where he was, and that can be corroborated. But seemingly, as Minister Lynn Brown...
The minister has not been given.
Yes.
Has not been given.
Are you of the view that this indeed is designed for a predetermined outcome, and what would that outcome be?
No, I guess, I mean, we must lament the fact or the conduct that we are seeing coming out of Parliament. I personally have been a victim of that smear that is said in that Parliament, supposedly under oath, by the members of Parliament when I was unlawfully removed from Petro SA, that they made all manner of allegations. And when I confronted them, all of them, they ran away, all of them without fail. Because at the end of the day, they knew full well that they did not care whatsoever about what happens to Petro SA. They wanted to achieve a particular political outcome. They were pursuing a particular agenda. And that is abuse by members of Parliament. The SABC inquiry was one such. This inquiry, so-called, is nothing but a kangaroo court. For starters, they have not even clarified what is the budget? How much money are they actually spending, flying up witnesses to come and testify, and the evidence leader who's an outsider? What is that evidence leader actually being paid? And whoever that is going to compile this report, the hours that go into it, it is nothing but a money-making scheme by those that are invoicing for this inquiry. But to then go and violate the rights of people, and therefore infringe on the constitutional rights, that is unacceptable from Parliament. What we expect of Parliament, we expect better. Eskom right now, as we speak here, is in an exceedingly perilous state. There are now reports that they actually are running out of cash. Now, this same inquiry has not even come to grips with that. If anything, instead of being supportive to Eskom, it is being destructive of Eskom. Because those stories that we are hearing in terms of dealing with the fundamentals, the people who are supposed to be ensuring that Eskom is not having a liquidity crunch, those people have all but been removed. So the question that must be asked, are these members of parliament in this committee, what do they have to gain with the demise of Eskom? Because everything else that they are doing is leading towards the demise of Eskom. And we know, as a matter of fact and cause, that there are people who had shown that by the end of this year, Eskom will be privatized, that they want to break up Eskom, take distribution, take generation, and then even bring in an unaffordable energy system called the independent power producers. So what is it that they have to gain? You can't help but have to question the motive of this inquiry, that it is a kangaroo court in order to bring about a state of dysfunctionality with Eskom, which is fundamental to the functioning of the economy of this country and the well-being of the society as a whole. And how can we therefore tolerate, as citizens, members of parliament who are abusing their position and playing with the livelihoods of many people? If Eskom collapses, the whole country will collapse. And they have not shown any appreciation whatsoever that they are seized with the reality that right now where Eskom is, there are hyenas and vultures that are circling in order to go and share the carcass of what is Eskom, much to the detriment of the well-being of all. And that is unacceptable.
Let's get to Zamo Madlala, Radical Economic Transformation Coalition, on the phone line. Thanks so much for joining us. Even the Eskom chairman, Zitembe Khoza, saying that those that have given testimonies and submissions clearly did so representing their own interests. I also have the view that what is really at stake here is the control, the management, and also considering who will benefit from this dysfunctional Eskom.
Good evening, Cindy, and the viewers at home and everyone on the panel. Well, our view is quite simply that the whole parliamentary inquiry and its terms of reference are a bit laughable, because if it was really about looking at Eskom and knowing very well in this public information that there have been things of 50-year-old contracts, any terms of reference that we're going to look at Eskom and what has been done to Eskom over time would have to look at Eskom over a long-term period, and not to go on a particular witch hunt for certain specific individuals that aren't given right of reply, as my fellow panelists have put out. But it's really sad and upsetting to really see the obvious and the strategies of manipulation of all and all resources towards the end of always finding a way of putting blame to a particular family or particular set of politicians and call it fractional. The Paradise Papers have been out. There hasn't been the greatest noise, because when you look at the companies that are mentioned there, it's what supposedly falls under the white monopoly capital definition. And when you look at where they've benefited, you may find that it traces straight back to the Eskom. Is Parliament going to look that far? I doubt it, because it is a witch hunt.
Zamo, just stay on the line. Is the Parliament Committee not adequately equipped? Because it's a very complex matter to deal with that has historical tentacles, and to get to the bottom of it all requires a more intensive, I suppose, forensic investigation.
Yeah, certainly they are not. More so because there is going to be a commission of inquiry that is going to be established very soon to deal with the very same issues. So they don't have all the necessary equipment, as correctly stated by you, to be able to ensure that they do qualitative work. But here is a challenge. The challenge is they can't even take a decision, because whatever recommendation that they take, they have to go to Parliament, to the National Assembly, and then they must endorse that. And remember, there are challenges between the ANC caucus around this particular issue. Now, if the National Assembly does not agree, it means we would have spent a lot of money unnecessary because nothing will happen to that thing. Because all the people are waiting for this commission of inquiry, which will be broader and deal with the issues that has just been said about these green contracts, you know, these 40-year contracts and all of those things. That needs to be investigated. So we are of the opinion that this is just a grandstanding by people who are really bitter because of what has happened. You can see Praveen is there and others are there, and they are bitter because they really want to revenge.
But can the minister be absolved of any responsibility or accountability and solely relying on the Eskom executive, albeit the suspended CFO, in the information that was granted with regards to the transactions with Trillion, etc.? Is the minister, you know, can she solely rely on reports that are given at executive level, or ought she have investigated further to satisfy whether there is anything or any wrongdoing for that matter?
Well, in many instances, the role of a shareholder in a state-owned enterprise is normally blurred with the role of the board and the role of management. I've spoken previously about, in fact, I was appalled in how the ANC handled itself, where it was giving instructions to Minister Brown. And by the way, spokesperson for the board, didn't say what he did about those unlawful instructions that came from outside and when he was there. But that's for another day. He didn't even say what he did with regard to the allegations that he made in order to correct them. But here is the issue. Parliament, I challenge them. They do not care about the well-being of the economy of this country. I challenge them. Their conduct tells us everything that they do not care. And this is a catalogue of things that they have been engaged in which are driving this country down a slippery slope. I mentioned about Petro SA. I went to court. To this day, Petro SA has never been able to come to court, or Central Energy Fund, or the ministry, and all those parliamentarians that had a lot to say. In the period that I have been in court, that they cannot appoint a chair, they have full of actors. I don't know if they are making Movango or whatever, but they are full of actors there. And as a result, over 6 billion rand has since been lost, and not even one of them has ever asked a question as to why is Petro SA in a dysfunctional state of, in fact, insolvency as it is. They have moved on, and yet my matter is in court. They still can't move until maybe the new minister will have the gumption and the humility to resolve this matter, because in court they are stuck. But now, here is the issue. This report that's going to come out of this kangaroo court, it is of no legal standing. It can't be used anywhere. So the question, therefore, is why is so much money being spent in a process whereby the only thing that they are able to achieve exceedingly is the tarnishing of characters of people who will from thenceforth never be able to work anywhere else because they have been tarnished, their heads were shaved in their absence. And is that the type of a country that we want to? And I'm saying Parliament and this committee and other committees are not exemplary. The question, therefore, is that why do we have such people that are supposed to be our lawmakers? And you say that, are they ill-equipped? Of course they are ill-equipped. How come we haven't seen them visiting at least one coal mine, or at least 10 coal mines that are supplying coal into Eskom, so that they could have an understanding? Right now they're speaking about the utility. They've never visited one power station. So they don't even know, they don't know the difference between a megawatt hour and a megawatt, and yet they are talking about exceedingly technical things. The question then becomes is that, what kind of questions can they ask when they are this clueless? And when you see the way that the inquiry is going, of course we shouldn't be surprised, because these are people that have never taken careful time to really understand the utility and what it does. And here they are now effectively plunging the whole country into a state of dysfunctionality. What will be achieved? And South Africans need to know this, is Eskom is on the verge of being sold to the greedy privateers who are interested in nothing but profit.
I think, unfortunately, I think by then the horse would have bolted and many of us would not be able to make much of a difference. So let's hope that there is some sensibility when it comes to shedding of state-owned entities. But I want to come back to those that will depose in a parliamentary forum, or one that requires for you to be truthful and speak the truth and nothing else but. Where we have the Eskom suspended legal head, Suzanne Daniels, then placing Deputy Minister of Public Enterprises, Mr. Ben Martins, at a particular meeting with the time specifications and those who were in attendance, giving names, etc., that he met to Duduzane Zuma and AJ Gupta. What is the truth between, the Deputy Minister now came back and said, this is where I was on the actual date in question. Why would Suzanne Daniels then make such a blatant accusation?
Well, Cindy, I won't be able to answer for Ms. Daniels, but I think she even confirmed it. I think I did hear her the morning after, where she stood by her testimony. But the reality of it is that we can't ignore the politics. I think I don't think the Eskom inquiry would have been happening right now if the ANC was not going to conference in December. So a lot of the things we really have to start also taking into the context, the political cycle that we find ourselves in, and the significance of the whole leadership of the ruling party, and how far some sectors of our population have invested, and some openly so, showing how much they are interested in the outcomes of that conference. So I think even this whole shenanigan of an inquiry in Parliament, I mean, if it was genuine, it would have had a longer term of reference. It wouldn't have been based on a particular academic report that says, look at this particular, because it appears as though they're looking at a particular family. I mean, if you want to look at something, go and look at Medupi and Kusile, which were both 80 billion rand projects, which are now comfortably over 200 billion. They have more than 250% of budgeted cost. Are they looking into that? And who are the delivery agents for those two projects? I mean, if we're going to do inquiries, let's do inquiries. If there's a time period, Medupi and Kusile are happening now, and they are ridiculously expensive, and
Zamo,
they're part of what
we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you indeed, Zamo Madlala, Radical Economic Transformation Coalition spokesperson, Lucky Tekisho, Transform RSA Deputy President, and as always, Tepo Khadima, political analyst. Appreciate your time.